Here we go again. It's time for Meraki Unboxed. This is the podcast from Cisco Meraki, where we talk about what we do here for a living and the technology that we bring to the outside world. And on this podcast, we talk about both the tech itself. So we're a cloud-managed networking company providing what we think is a very simple approach to IT communications and infrastructure. But we also talk about what it's like to actually work here and the various different departments that we have here at Cisco Meraki. So we put this podcast out approximately once every 2 weeks. And we really want to make sure that we're encompassing as much of your feedback as we can to make sure this content is as relevant and fun for you, engaging for you as we can. So I definitely encourage you to reach out and let me know what you would love us to be talking about. And you can do that directly to me on Twitter. At Meraki Simon is my handle, at Meraki Simon. Alternatively, we have a community, an online community. It's very popular, actually. I was pretty shocked to see just how many regular people we have on that community now. It's measured in the thousands. So that's really super exciting. And that's a great place as well to come and talk about what you hear here and also to think about what you might want to hear about next, because we really want that feedback. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into today's session. And today we're talking about something that here at Meraki we call the digital workplace. And so we like to think about fun and different names for things here. Why call it IT? Why call it facilities? Let's call it digital workplace and really think about a more interesting approach, a more holistic approach. And that's what I wanted to discuss today. And so joining me today, we have Irene and Topher, who have taken some time out of their day, very busy, both of them. So I'm super grateful for the time they're able to spend with us. And let's get into the discussion. So Irene, let's start with you. Tell us what you do for Meraki.
Hi, so I am a digital workplace operations manager. So I joined Meraki 2 years ago on the IT side before we merged with facilities as digital workplace. Just kind of did some operations administrating and really just helping our IT team kind of streamline some of our processes, like new hire onboarding, procurement, financing, everything. When we merged as digital workplace, just kind of expanding that to the facility side as well, so supporting both sides of the team and also just helping both our teams work well together and just kind of achieve our goals as a department.
It's awesome. And actually, that's a good point we're going to come back to pretty soon, is the fact that we did have these two separate organizations and we've kind of brought them together. Topher, tell us a little bit about you. What do you do for Meraki?
So I'm on the IT engineering team. I'm a systems administrator on this team, and I help build out some of the back-end services that keep everybody connected to various services or features, or whether it's the network, whether it's an online service, whether it's supporting some team or an individual. There's a number of different sort of applications that we keep hosted and deployed. And me and the team that I'm on, we do our best to kind of keep these up and running and sort of answer to the needs of the various teams as new demands come up.
Which never stop, right?
They never stop. Yeah, they're constantly changing. There's constantly, for every service that's out there, there's a better alternative that we might be investigating or making some optimization to or otherwise.
I'm actually very happy that we have folks here representing the technology side of our business. We're speaking to you in our webinar room, and you may hear in the background a little bit of chair shuffling noises. We only have 2 mics in here, guys, and it's kind of embarrassing. I think we need to get 3. We need to be able to have that conversation. So we're literally just moving chairs around as we do this, making the best of what we have available to us. But I think I need to get a ticket in for that for sure. All right, so let's dive into a little bit of detail. Irene, tell us a little bit about digital workplace. What is this concept? What are we trying to do differently? How are we trying to think about service differently at Meraki?
Yeah, absolutely. So digital workplace at the baseline is just IT and facilities. We merged as one department about maybe a little over 2 years ago. Basically, Meraki, one of our Meraki values is really to simplify everything, and we really try to encompass that as a department to try and simplify our experience internally. Our customers are the Meraki employees, and so how we do this internally is really, like Simon mentioned, just in our service model and how we're simplifying our internal processes, how we make getting requests easy for our employees and how we route and filter those requests in the most efficient way to either our IT or facilities side of the house. So it's really just, we're coming from really like a customer service perspective and how we can best enable our employees and simplify things for them, how we can best support our employees, and that's really at the core of everything that we do.
And I mean, we've all had this experience. I'm sure everybody who's listening has had that experience of raising a ticket with IT or something to do with their facilities experience. And of course that happens here as well. Topher, tell us a little bit about the way that we as employees interact with Digital Workplace. How do I raise a ticket here?
So we have several options. So our primary ticket queue is a very commonly used one. It's Zendesk that people can go in and submit a ticket directly in a portal. Alternatively, we have just email submission of sorts that we can have people send an email directly to our Help Me queue.
So what's that? Remind me the email address.
It's helpme@meraki.net.
Actually, why are we doing that publicly? We don't want everybody to send that. Do we actually filter the outside world, or do you get all the tickets from the rest of the world?
We filter.
We do filter.
Okay, so good luck, everybody. You can send tickets as many as you like. But
we've covered our bases on that.
Internal IT only, or internal Meraki.
This is how we know they're doing their job properly. Sorry, I completely interrupted your flow.
That's okay. Yeah, so we have these queues, and these go into our back-end queue that we then sort of triage and send those to the various teams that need them. On the back end of Digital Workplace, we do have it sort of split into three basic categories: a facilities group, a sort of front-facing IT group, and then the IT engineering group. And then depending on the type of ticket, who it's coming from, is it coming from an end user who needs a password reset, or is it coming from an engineering team that needs a new service hosted, or somebody who's having a problem with an entire section of the network that's down, or maybe a whole desk area that needs to be shuffled around some way. And so all of these tickets come in. We all handle them.
It's very broad, very broad. And one of the interesting aspects as well is that we make the gear. And so it's been a while since I've ventured into one of our comms rooms. I mean, it's something I did way back at the beginning of my career as an IT engineer myself, patching cables and running them under the floors and all of those many different aspects that people take completely for granted. But tell us a little bit about the Meraki technology that we actually make ourselves, design and build ourselves, that we have implemented directly in our own offices.
Yeah, so we make use of our entire product line, and part of that is because the flexibility of the equipment and the deployability of it makes it almost purpose-built to exactly our entire infrastructure and the model that we have for how we shuffle teams around, how we expand, and as a sort of starting out as small to mid-sized business and growing larger and interfacing with larger parent companies and also alternative companies that we might be using. So when we expand, we might build out a custom office. We might build out a office within our parent Cisco company, or we might build out into other places where there's existing infrastructure already. And having the equipment that we build, our MX, our MR, our MS switches, that all work together very well to sort of build out this holistic and flexible network stack centrally managed in this dashboard that we can have one or two people just submit policies, build out an entire set of sort of connectivity that we can then deploy with only a few people on the ground. It's allowed us to be very flexible, not only with building something out, but changing it. Instead of having a whole architecture needing to be built and understood and sort of set in stone before we deploy something, we can decide, well, we might want 100 people over in this area of the building, and then at the last minute change that around and say, no, we want them on the other side of the building.
Right. And
we can quickly redeploy our equipment there and make that connectivity happen. Some of the only limiting factors are if you need physical cabling put into a building or something to that effect.
Yep.
But as long as that equipment or that physical infrastructure is already there, then the redeployment of switches, expanding the capacity, to meet the needs is something that we can do with our equipment pretty well. And so we've to some degree mastered it pretty well, and being able to use it to its full advantage.
And that's and Irene, this is like, it's not just within this building. I mean, we're speaking to you from our headquarters in San Francisco. It's obviously the main Meraki site. A lot of employees working here. It's like 1,000, something like that.
Yeah, I think about 1,000 employees in SF.
Wow. So it's also, I mean, the other aspect that was interesting about this is the connectivity that we have between the different locations. And there's a lot to talk about there as far as both IT and facilities as well, and how we approach that. Maybe if we start with the tech side of things, like what do we do when we're scouting out and we're building out a new office? What are the steps that we look at from a technology perspective?
Yeah, well, maybe Topher can talk a little more in the specifics, but when we do, in the last couple of years, we've actually had to build out a lot of branch offices very quickly, just based on the needs of our companies. We built out Chicago a couple times, I think, in the last couple of years, and we built out in Asia as well. And kind of like Topher was saying, just based on how we've kind of mastered using our own gear and how we've deployed that, it's made it really simple for us to do this very quickly and to do it with very little personnel on hand as well. So whenever we're building out an office, we usually send out maybe like one person from our IT team, one person from our facilities team, and they're able to really just ramp up an office space in the matter of a week or two, and to get people on site immediately.
I think it's really noticeable that you say that so casually, a week or two. And I am aware that some of these facilities have had to be spun up really quickly. And I know that at one time we had a problem in the London office where we had to move everybody at really short notice. Were either of you involved in that one?
We weren't, but I definitely heard about this. There was like a beam that fell in the London office, and they had to move everybody out immediately. One of our IT staff members was rolling out switches on a cart, just moving it to our temporary space and ramping things up in, I don't know, maybe in a day or two. I think
Yeah, I can't remember the exact time frame, but it was really fast. A couple of days we were up and running.
Yeah.
That's what I recall. And every time, because of the ease of the system you're working with, I mean, of course, we always have to tout this, the Meraki dashboard, making it super easy because you've already got basically your template there, and all you're doing is spinning it up and applying it to different pieces of hardware.
Yeah, that's exactly one of the benefits that we use a lot is once you have one deployment of an office space, you can take that entire network and just copy it.
Right.
And so all you need is the physical hardware, and that can even be just almost drop shipped from our orders team. We just need 3 switches, a few APs, or what have you, and we can just order those, send them out there while they're on the plane getting out there and getting delivered. We can copy that network, add the serial numbers, configure it all exactly as we expect it to, and then somebody, of course, just needs to unbox it, plug it in, and make sure that all the lights come on as we all expect, and then everything should, as long as it has an internet connection, it should try to auto-discover our dashboard back end, pull all of its configurations, and be able to establish that network. And it takes very little time for that to happen once it's all up and running.
And what about the actual... Because of course, one of the aspects of any networking vendor, Meraki, of course, no exception, is that there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can design a network and that you can implement your company policies, both personal and technical policies. What are some of the Meraki features that you guys particularly like and that you have that we implement here ourselves?
So some of the features, at least from a technological standpoint, it revolves largely these days around security. That's a major factor for anybody, especially as you deploy a quick network up in a random place. If you have a parent company or a site of sorts and you don't trust exactly what that infrastructure is, our MX devices create a tunneled auto VPN, a very secure tunnel between themselves. So provided there's a network connection, the traffic going across that connection between your sites and what expands your corporate network to that site is going to be very secure. And then on top of that, the way we establish sort of security to the switches, we incorporate a lot of standards that are well defined. We incorporate like radius authentication. We interface, at least what we do on our end, because we've got access to a lot of Cisco's technologies. We incorporate Cisco's ICE engine as part of the way, and we incorporate a lot of policies in there to specify who gets access to the network based off of credentials. And on a given credential, are you a part of an engineering team? Do you get put onto all of their resources and get access to their resources? Or are you on another team? Or are you nobody we know, but we want to give you just direct internet access?
Yep.
We can do any of these types of policies very quickly from our switches. And as well as if you don't have that infrastructure, and we for a while were running without it, you can just very manually, very specifically set up generic policies for your switching environment or for your entire environment, and be able to give access to anything from an SSID to a switch port or otherwise to get people onto the network in a way that gets them onto that auto VPN back to the headquarters and be able to establish that communication.
Auto VPN was like my favorite thing when I first joined Meraki, and because I don't know if either of you configured or set up site-to-site VPNs the traditional way elsewhere. And it's what's so funny is that every single time you say that to anybody who's worked in IT, they always respond in the same way. They either burst out laughing or burst into tears. It's usually one of the two. It's pretty painful experience. Why do you think that is, Topher? Why is it so hard for so many people to get their heads around, or the technology really to help them get their sites connected?
It's just a lot of steps that need to be put in place, as well as some maybe incompatibility between two sites. Maybe you have a site that is running on some older hardware, and you don't really have the funds to upgrade it, but you're trying to expand out to a new site, and you're struggling with how can I make these different technologies connect with each other. And not only does it require you to make some accommodations for what the technologies support, but then you have to go into them and configure them, sometimes manually, sometimes with a console cable. Somebody on site has to go there, plug in, get their laptop out, connect up, and start transferring certificates between these two sites, because and if you're using your own certificates for encrypting your connection, you're going to have to pass them back and forth between the trusted devices. And if those are remote, well, you're going to have to bring them somehow, whether it's emailing them to yourself. Do you want to send your private keys around in any way, or do you want to bring them on a public on a USB drive on the airplane with you, or do you send these devices to a central location, configure them, and then send them out to the remote locations that they're going to be serving? All that can sometimes be just a logistical nightmare, and
it's a lot of variables.
And I've had deployments where IT teams have sat in a room with stacks of switches, stacks of routers, and have gone through one by one, labeling every single one where they're supposed to go, how they're supposed to be configured, and they have all of them go one by one to the table, get plugged in, get configured, sent to the big, pile to be deployed, and then there's the logistics of sending them out to the remote locations, connecting them up properly, making sure they all boot properly, then connect them all together and do remote locations. You end up with teams of people worldwide who have to work now in tandem with each other to get these sites connected. And I'm
loving, and dear audience, you can't see Topher as he's answering this, but he's getting increasingly animated as he describes this reality that he has been through elsewhere, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that as well. But I mean, that's really what we're trying to get past, right? Is some of that pain that we have experienced in the past, and I was pretty amazed when I first came to Meraki and I saw the VPN setup. I mean, it's 3 clicks of the mouse, something like that, to connect sites together because of the cloud management, right?
Yeah, you create a network, you add your security device to the network, and once that security device gets a connection to the internet, sometimes your ISP might have some weird little requirement that you have to go in and set up somehow. But beyond that, it connects up, it discovers itself through our dashboard, and you see it come online.
compares favorably.
I
And it's
can
not-
do the same thing with 2 people that I took me at least 10 people to do otherwise.
Right. So that means they can get on and do other things. And it's the tickets thing as well was amazing to me. We were, just before we started pressed record here, we were checking over some of the stats. Irene, tell us, how busy is this team? How much work do you guys do?
We do a lot of work. We support a lot of employees, and globally every week, I think we were looking at maybe 400 tickets a week that we get in for IT and facilities requests, password reset problems, desk problems, computer problems, all that. So, 1,600 tickets a month that we're all solving constantly. And and if we really look at it, only half our team is really in the ticket queue, I would say, just answering these tickets. And we run a very lean team, I would say. So.
And then it gets farmed out to the respective groups, right, depending on what type of thing it is.
Yeah, so kind of like how Topher mentioned, we have kind of one input for all our requests for IT and facilities. You just have kind of our Help Me mailer or portal that people can submit a request in. And essentially, the idea is to just really simplify that experience for the employees and just say, hey, if you need any help with anything related to the office or your work or anything, just send in a ticket, and then we handle the routing and the filtering on our end to see which side of our team is meant to handle that kind of request. So you're not sending in random tickets here and there and getting a bounce back saying this isn't the right mailer. You just have one way to submit a support ticket, and then we help you figure out who the right person is.
It's a pretty refreshing approach. I mean, that is the simple concept right there, isn't it? I mean, we talk at Meraki all the time about simplification, and we have a campaign running right now called Work Simple. You can see that on our website with our famous Dave, the IT guy, in the starring role there. And but the simplification of the approach, like I don't have to as an employee figure out who I need to message to get anything done related to my working experience. When I walk in the door here, I experience so many aspects of the building, the security, getting into the doors, right through to the ergonomics at my desk. We have lots of standing desks here, right, to help people out. And then, of course, all the IT stuff. One of the things that I really like here is that we have, above and beyond the ticketing system, there's also ways we can directly interface. I come in the morning and my laptop refuses to even start up. What do I do then?
Yeah, so we have our help desk here, and we have this in all our branch offices where we have IT staff located. And so it's just this desk right by our pod where employees can walk up and come get help during our work hours immediately. And so we have help desk personnel that's seated there. And if your laptop isn't working, bring that up. We have like a Chromebook loaner program too that get you set up just immediately while we're helping troubleshoot your problems as well. So yeah, we're very tangible. We're here for employees. Like I said, we really operate with a customer service model, and so just enabling our employees is the most important part of our jobs.
Mm-hmm. And it even extends as far as some self-help as well, right? There's this machine outside. Tell us about that machine.
Yeah, so if anyone's been to our SF office, we have 2 vending machines in our San Francisco office, and we have 1 in Chicago, actually. And these aren't snack vending machines. They're actually IT peripheral or IT accessory vending machines. And so they have just basic keyboard, mice, chargers, adapters. We have a cable station just kind of next to it, and essentially just making it really easy for employees to get what they need. So if your mouse died or it's broken, instead of submitting a ticket and just waiting a couple of days to get one, and also instead of waiting at the help desk, you can actually go to the vending machine, scan your badge, get what you need, and you're good to go. So just reducing kind of that wait time and that need to wait for someone to get back to you and help you it's kind of a self-help model there as well. And we have 2 in SF, so you're never too far away from one.
You're reminding me actually of that hashtag dongle life. It's like this is the reality we live in now because we've got these skinny laptops with like 1 port on them. And,
yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a thing. I'm sure that many out there will be able to relate to that as
Definitely.
well. Actually, one of the aspects I really like about that area where you could go and grab what you need is that there's also a bit of a recycling element goes on as well. There's definitely kit up there that's not brand new, right?
Yeah, so we definitely, with employees leaving or just sometimes if we have a chance, if something's broken and we're able to fix it, we do have a shelf that has used equipment as well. And, you don't need to scan your badge for it all. I think it just makes people a little more aware of, the cost of items as well. And so we see a lot of people who have, lab equipment that they need a mice or a keyboard for, and they don't necessarily need a new item. They can just go and grab a used item as well. So recycling here at Meraki too.
There we go. All right, so let's get back into the technology side of things. We're obviously part of Cisco. We have been for a long time now. That means that there's presumably a lot of projects that we get involved in as far as unifying the experience as far as possible. Maybe walk us through an example of a project that's been particularly interesting to share with our listeners.
Let's see, like a project that involves directly with Cisco.
Yeah, so bringing in the technology that they use, the standardization around maybe the systems that we're using, the software we're using, that kind of thing.
Well, we have a lot of Cisco. We have a lot of access to Cisco technology being under Cisco. So one of the aspects that we are sort of that we benefit from is having access to a lot of their, like their hosting mechanisms. There's like servers and whatnot that, and their infrastructure that we can install in our data centers and build out our footprint. Or we don't really have a data center that we, as the IT team, necessarily like curate per se, but we have presence in data centers
because it's all gone cloud, right?
A lot of it has gone cloud, and that's something that we are able to benefit from as well. Is a lot of Cisco's cloud services. Cisco has authentication services. It has security services, and we embed those as much as possible into the experience here. So it's all behind the scenes. It's all stuff that users won't necessarily interface with, but it's happening. We're scanning, doing deep packet inspection. We're trying to make sure that what's going through our network, what's coming in from the outside is blocked if it's malicious, and it's properly flagged, properly tested, and that we add to the ongoing larger kind of sort of security construct that it revolves around a lot of Meraki and Cisco gear. One of the things that we do with in tandem with Cisco is we build out detection of malware, where if something is detected on our MX units, that's submitted to Cisco and flagged and tested, and it undergoes a battery of determinations as to whether or not it's something that is a true threat. Yeah. And if so, if it's found on one network, maybe ours here at headquarters, then that's federated out to every single MX unit that we've sold to any company, any individual.
Right.
And so if now you are hit with that same malicious packet, your MX will now detect it within hours of it having been detected here at headquarters. Or in reverse, if it hits your network, and then we see it hit ours because it was hit in a different network, detected and processed. Now other networks like ours.
So it's like a collective brain that we're feeding from all of these different deployments, customer deployments, our own deployments, and I think this is a very cool model because it means that we're literally just adding more and more security awareness as time goes by, wherever it's fed from, and then shared out to every single Meraki security appliance user, the MX box as it's known here. That's amazing tech.
Yeah, it's something that makes deep use of Cisco's security infrastructure that they have for detecting this process. You wouldn't think it's happening, but behind the scenes, we have a massive farm of servers that are processing this data and churning it that Cisco has, and that we then just integrate with our environment.
This is the Talos group, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones they're like a research group, I think, that are constantly looking for threats out in there. And actually, one of the things that is quite cool with this technology as well is that it works retrospectively. So if we determine in some way at a later date that there was an issue that affected a file that was transferred some time ago, we can actually retrospectively let people know that that was the case, so they think, in case they want to check it out. Right? Yeah. It's clever stuff. All right, so for our listeners, there may be some folks interested in this concept of bringing together IT and facilities. If you're starting out this journey all over again, what would you do differently? Like, what would be your advice for unifying these teams?
Oh, I think I don't think you were here when we merged as a team, but I think a big thing is also focusing on how to kind of simplify the communications internally. Internal to the team and internal to our department, as well as externally. I think when we first merged, we put a lot of emphasis on how do we make the employee experience simple and easy, and how do we almost take that burden of filtering and routing everything on the back end. And I think what's really important is to keep in mind, like as we are operating as a department, is how do we kind of keep that communication well within our department as well. I think sometimes we run into a problem where they're doing we've had an office move happen, and Topher's team, the IT engineering team, didn't know that there was a bunch of people moving to one side of the floor, and they had to go and add APs. One morning they had to just go and add a bunch of APs, and so it's stuff like that where I think that if you put a lot of emphasis on that at the beginning, then you'll really build yourself up for success. I think it's stuff that we learned along the way, but has really grown as a team since, and just and really been able to do that. But I think it's really important as well. Yeah.
The communication. It's just a thing, isn't it?
It's just a thing.
There's always that human problem that
right.
It's the communication that's always going to be that aspect of it. And like Irene was saying, when you come in on a morning and somebody's been hardcore planning something, and you have no idea that it's been in the works, and you come in and everything's turned around. What is going on? Now you have to do this discovery and try to figure out what my role is, where this whole process needs to happen. And that has happened, I think, in many teams. I think many people could probably relate with that. And just knowing that that is, regardless of the technology that you throw at something, it comes down to basic communication as your kind of saving grace for those situations is always a learn factor for us.
I think we kind of, like Topher was mentioning, I think there are different aspects to what we do. There's IT, there's facilities, there's projects and tasks that we work on together. I think it's realizing that the ones that we work on together, we do need to work together on, and how do we best handle those, because we did come together as a department for a reason, and so it's how do we facilitate that and make it really great.
Well, I think the proof is in the pudding, eating of the pudding, right? Whatever that saying is. Wait, do you say that in America? I always have to check this stuff.
I've heard that a few times.
We have all these idioms in England, and they don't always work over here. Okay, so I think my sense is that you guys are universally loved across the organization for the customer service side of things. I think it's always a very quick response, and I think that speed of response is probably down to how refined you've got it at this point, how good a system you've got down. And there's probably some people listening here who are thinking about what they're going to do for a career. Maybe they're thinking about a career in IT or facilities or something like a digital workplace. What sort of advice would you give them? Like, sell your role, sell this function.
I always say that I feel like our team and what I do and what Topher's team does really sits at the heart of a lot of, what Meraki does, and how to, if you have a great sense of customer service and you want to help employees and you really want to be in like a supportive position, I think this is a really great team, and you have to have that kind of mindset is like your goal and whatever you do is really, to enable other employees and to enable the workspace and the workforce and everything. And so I feel like if that's what you want, this is like the perfect team for that. And
right.
You have to have the kind of attitude going in as well.
Yeah, I think that Irene kind of nails it on the head there with the sense of enablement.
Right.
That idea is that you have people here who are dealing with technology in one way or another, or dealing with a environment, their workplace overall, and they're just trying to get their job done, whether it's a marketing person or a HR person or a legal role, and they're trying to send an email, they're trying to load a page or get to some portal start up a meeting, whatever it might be. And if they try to do so and it lags, it chops, it doesn't connect, there's some issue there that interferes with their entire workflow. Sometimes their entire day can be thrown off because of something that happened bad maybe early in the morning. And so if we can enable something, that's sort of the driving force I think a lot of us feel, whether you're on the help desk and you're receiving somebody who's running up last minute, they're in the middle of some presentation and it's failing. You have to run off the help desk, go down and help them out, get that presentation back up and running.
Or they're trying to make a printer work at the one moment when they actually need it to work.
Yeah, well, from their perspective, you realize that they're trying to get it to work. It was working yesterday. It's not working today. What happens? And sometimes the printer was moved because a janitor came in and decided they needed to sweep behind it. For some reason, nobody knows until they try to print, and that's when the time starts. At the back end, there's also the enablement factor. If you've built a service, if you're a coder, a lot of us here, we build custom code to serve our team, to serve other teams, to connect various services together, and just to make things work on the back end. And when you see somebody walk by a project that you've built or something that is affected by a project you've built, and you see them directly sort of like crack a smile or something and then be able to do something more with their day, whether it's finding a conference room or whether it's interfacing with somebody in a way that just goes through some service that you worked on. That sort of enablement feeling is something that's a core satisfaction that I think all of our team shares one way or another, whether you're coding, whether you're on help desk, whether you're building out our food program. Otherwise.
I think some of our best solutions and ideas really come from people, and we can find anybody that has an interest in IT and interest in technology. And I think, you do well on the team, but I think what really differentiates somebody who has an interest from somebody who really wants to think of creative solutions. Like the vending machine didn't come out of nowhere. That came from somebody on our team who was passionate about, really helping our employees out. And so things like that is really, I think, what really differentiates. And, IT and facilities weren't merged because somebody told us to. It was something where we really noticed hey, we can work well together and we can really make a huge difference to our company by working together and collaborating together. So I think a lot of that really comes from just somebody having the passion for that aspect.
I can tell you, folks, just how much passion there is here. Topher is wearing a T-shirt, and on that T-shirt it says, "Looking for trouble." I don't know how much more service-oriented you could get than that.
Yeah, that's sort of exact. That's the type of thing that we're basically doing all the time. I spend my days monitoring things. Something turns red, it turns orange. I'm on it. I'm trying to figure out why, how to fix it, how to prevent it from happening again. And that's at least my proactive way of preventing that problem that might affect the team, affect their experience during the day.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's sort of the deeper aspect. You think, oh, I'm just building a server. Okay, I'm starting up some service and hurrah, there it's done. But there's actually a larger holistic aspect to it. Now that it's up, how are you going to keep it up? How are you going to keep, there's sort of a buzzword, high availability. Keep this thing up regardless of what happens on the back end of it. So that involves numerous technological approaches, each one which requires sort of a passionate view to get up and running, whether it's monitoring it or optimizing it in very specific ways. And that's, at least from my end, how I sort of employ that kind of involvement. But everybody's doing similarly from their aspects of our team towards the larger groups here.
And like you said, it's so cool that you get to see the reactions in person. I'm sure there's a lot of IT teams out there where they feel probably a little isolated from the actual users themselves. But one of the great benefits we have here, and I think we definitely would fly the flag for this kind of office layout, is that interaction, that closeness that we have working together, regardless of what departments we're in, to basically maximize our effectiveness as a group. Super cool. All right. Well, we're going to wrap things up now. Thank you both so much for taking time out. I think it's been a fun chat and probably some really interesting points for people to think about, because I'm pretty sure that out there are plenty of IT teams and facilities teams working completely separately. And from what I remember, when I was close to that sharp end, even within IT, you can have different factions, people off doing security and other people off doing the Wi-Fi and so on and so on. So it's very interesting to see what can happen if you bring things together and think about it more holistically. Well, thanks again to all of you for joining us on Meraki Unboxed. As I said, we do this approximately every 2 weeks. You should get another episode up in about 2 weeks from now. And I want to know what you want to put in that episode and what we should be focusing on as we move ahead with this podcast. Remember, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Meraki Simon. So please send me a message on there. Let me know how you like the podcast and any tips or suggestions or questions you have for how we can move it forwards. And so without further ado, from Irene, Topher, and myself, thanks all, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.